There we go. Hey, John.
Hey, how you doing?
I am good, man. Looks like another beautiful day in San Diego.
Yeah, and try and take advantage of it. But my wife put my chair setup out here back. So I had to recreate my outdoor setup.
That's great. What
Where
what
you
part
live?
of town are you in?
What's that?
What part of town are you in?
Rancho Bernardo, kind of like North County, Northeast. You familiar?
Somewhat. Let me pull that up on the map.
It's right by
We,
Poway.
yeah.
Basically, as we keep on having kids and getting older, all my friends and I have been moving north and east in order to get like any sort of space or anything.
I see. Okay, yeah. So we looked at moving to Poway at one point in the past. My wife and I love San Diego, um, and have visited multiple times. So I am familiar with Poway, and I see where Rancho Bernardo is now. Um,
Yeah,
it's
we're
funny
Poway
is
schools and everything.
okay. It's funny. One time we were traveling in an RV and we stayed for like a month in the San Diego area, and we were at an RV park up in El Cajon, and it was during the summer, and the temperature difference between El Cajon and the coast was unbelievable,
Yeah.
just crazy.
It's funny that you say that because we were just talking about that this morning with the guy from Chicago. He's considering moving to San Diego. I've been selling it should be pretty easy to convince someone from Chicago to move to San Diego.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was talking about the coast, and the other guy in the call goes, actually, it's 10 to 15 degrees hotter inland than on the coast. You might want to go inland. Uh, it's a big difference. Where are you right now?
I'm in Boulder at the moment. We live in Superior, which is between Denver and Boulder, but
Yep.
my office is in downtown Boulder.
Nice. I have a lot of good friends in the Denver, Boulder, Colorado Springs, and actually Fort Collins area.
Oh, really?
Surprising a lot. Yeah, a lot of people came out to California that I met from there, and my friends from Michigan moved to Denver. So I ended up like basically that's the place where I know the most people outside of San Diego.
Interesting. Do you visit fairly often?
Uh, I did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course.
maybe once or twice a year. Like my childhood best friend is there, and I have some other friends, and went to Red Rocks. Probably last October, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Before COVID, so 2019 or something.
Yeah. My wife was born and raised here, and then we lived here for about a decade together, and we left for about 5 years, went to Texas and Oklahoma, and then just came back 2 months ago. But I took my wife and three daughters. My wife was familiar already, of course, but we took them up to Red Rocks to see it, and it was a lot of fun. It's just such a magnificent view and such a unique place.
Yeah, we went. I would love to see a show there. We just went on an off day and went hiking and stuff. But I would love to see a concert sometime. Live music is one of my favorite things to do, and it's like the only thing I've really missed since being cooped up.
Yeah. I remember I saw Tom Petty there years ago, and then I had tickets to Jack Johnson, and something happened. I wasn't able to go. I don't remember the details, but I remember just being bummed out that I wasn't able to see him there. That would have been pretty incredible.
Yeah, my wife's Brazilian. They all love Jack Johnson.
Really? He's got that vibe going on.
Yeah, exactly. So did you say that? Did you watch the recording of the meeting that I had?
I did, yeah.
Um, Awesome, cool. I didn't even realize that was going on, but yeah, I mean, we just had like a real, as you could tell, initial conversation and everything, and just seeing what fits together or what doesn't, and we're open to anything as we're just coming to market. And yeah, I just wanted, if you have any thoughts or ideas or anything like that, I'm happy to hear anything.
I'm really excited about the product. I looked at your LinkedIn and you mentioned a conversation you had on Clubhouse with the VC. I'm curious, how did that go, or what's the status of that?
Yeah, that one's dead. It went really well actually. We had like 400 people in the room listening.
Oh,
It was our first pitch really, so it was cool that it went pretty well. We got like some interested customers from the thing, even though I think those have fizzled out by now too. But it was good practice for us. Then we did a second round with the same guy and the guy who's in charge of the fund. That was like 45 minutes where the partner just like beat us up for 45 minutes.
oh,
And we knew he wasn't going to invest, but like 10 or 15 days later, they finally said no, even though they said they liked us and blah, 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 all that stuff. But we have other people that we think want to invest, but we haven't really been seriously trying to raise. We hadn't put together a pitch deck or anything. So we were just kind of like casually testing the water and seeing what was
Sure.
out there. And if someone wanted to give us some money, then great. But now we're going to do we're basically trying to sign one of these huge deals this week and then do this fundraise right after it in a more official capacity.
Okay. And what was the reason? Like, did they share why they didn't invest? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Actually, these guys were like pretty hardcore developers.
Okay.
And they said, and the thing that he was stuck on the whole time is he's like, well, why don't companies just build this themselves? He's like, every company's going to build this themselves. And I was like, okay, like these companies are not, you're a developer. Like, sure, you think your answer is build everything yourself. These companies are not going to build
Sure.
it. And like, sure, some company will build it themselves and a lot will, but that's not every company out there. And we're betting that they're going to go somewhere else for it. So, I mean, he said he agreed that everyone's going to use QR codes and all that stuff, but he said every company's going to build their own and there's not a room for a platform.
I'm
So,
not so sure about that.
well, of course. I mean, these guys, no one
Yeah.
knows everything, and we respectfully disagree with them. But like,
Sure.
he asked us what we wanted, and it was $1 million like 2 months ago or a month ago. Whenever we talked to him, now we're asking for 3 million. So I'm pretty happy. It didn't work out, and we've matured since then and have better deals and all that stuff. So like, we just took it as practice, and we haven't been like seriously trying to raise. And I also like. We withstood that guys beating us up for 45 minutes and like we still thought that we were making points the whole time and we liked being tested and seeing where
Oh
we
yeah.
stood and we could hand that. So
So much value in that.
I liked the experience and we think of it like if these guys were consultants, it would be super expensive for them to try and like, poke holes in our business plan or something. Might as well pitch them and
Well
try and
said.
get it
Yeah.
that way or whatever,
Yeah. So what would you consider to be your moat?
Yeah. Um, we've been building this for about 4 years. So other people, like someone asked us, oh, what if Google decided to do this? And of course, Google could decide to do any of this stuff, but, they would just buy us instead of doing it themselves, so we have the programmability inside our QR codes that generate pages. So we have a templated page and the QR code. So no one else takes the QR codes and makes those QR codes generate different types of pages based on different customer metadata that's programmed into the code. So someone could do that for sure, but I think it would take them, a year or two and millions of dollars to do it. My co-founder is super talented. He was at Twilio for like 8 years. He's founded a bunch of companies and so that part is a great moat. The other thing is at this point, we're getting like relationships and I think we're going to be the first mover with a lot of these. Like tomorrow we're meeting with Toys R Us, the North Face, and an even bigger company that we're under NDA with. So I think we're going to get the branding as the QR guys or whatever, and
That's huge.
and be in there. Not to mention, on top of all that, we have this whole omni-channel contact center. So we basically have like a talk desk or a dial pad is our like, oh, but wait, there's more.
Yeah,
So
okay.
everyone else would have to plug into existing communication systems to build all that. We have it within ours so we can do the total solution. And then we get all the analytics directly in ours for the scans, the clicks, the phone calls, the text, all that stuff.
That's brilliant.
So the programmable QR codes and the contact center, I think, are the biggest moats, but really my co-founder is the man and I've built a ton of relationships too.
And it sounds like you're the sales guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. I want to talk to you a bit about that, but before I forget, I'm curious to know what your experience has been on the personal side as a mentor to foster youth.
Yeah. Tons of ups and downs and all that stuff. The kid's 27 now. I've been his mentor since he was 8.
Wow.
So, still see him, like not because of COVID or whatever, but, still see him often, talk to him yesterday. And he's been through a ton in his life. So there's tons of ups and downs in it. And it's hard to see the kids go through that. And I've actually basically mentor a ton of business people now, just kind of fell into it. I guess it's something that I just do or whatever. And now I'm like past capacity. And a couple of people have asked me recently and just said, I can refer you to some other people. I just don't have, the time or really I get involved in people's lives if I'm trying to help them. And, I have 2 young kids myself and trying to start a startup and help this kid. There's only so much I can do right now and try and figure out how to do it a little bit better at scale, I guess.
Yeah.
Have you done that type of stuff?
So, well, we've fostered for off and on for 10 years.
Yeah, you told me that in the email.
Yeah, quite a number of kiddos. And then we adopted 2 little girls from the Texas foster system back in
Awesome.
17. So it's hard though, man. Like we're no longer fostering. We had our last 2 foster kiddos last year. They left in September, and it was a really positive end. They went back with their dad. He did so great. Just really worked the program and was able to get them back. So it was really a positive ending, which was exciting. That doesn't happen real often. So we decided at that point, like, God, we just need we've just done enough. Like it's been enough. It's just a challenge. We're ready to go to the next chapter. And we struggle at times with our 2 adoptive girls. Like there's so many challenges with adopted kiddos and their past, and they were on the older side when we got them. So it's just been tough. It's been rich in a lot of ways, but also really challenging.
Really hard. And that's why, I mean, like, I felt like even now with the kid that I mentor, like, I help him as much as I can, but he's 27 years old. He's going to do what he's going to do. And
Yeah.
It sucks not, seeing them struggle and not being able to help, but you can only do so much. And, if you've been fostering for 10 years, my gosh, I can only imagine how many different lives you get invested in. I know the numbers that come out of the foster system, how bad the situations usually are and what happens afterwards and all that stuff. And like, there's, no matter how well you do, you're still going to have those negative experiences and stuff. And like people said, oh, the kid you mentor is probably going to, get killed or be in jail or something. And I was like, yeah, that's definitely possible. And hopefully his life was better in the time that we talked or whatever, and it's tough because you can't marry yourself to the outcomes. And you need to just do the best you can. And after 10 years, like I could imagine being pretty spent and emotionally.
That's what you said is exactly the challenge that that my wife and I have had. And that is being attached to the results. She's super attached to the results versus just doing our best, right? Like, so when she doesn't get the results that she's hoping for, and one of our kiddos has RAD, reactive attachment disorder, and has a very hard time bonding. And my wife just pours out and pours out and pours out. She's a stay-at-home mom. And it's been hard because she doesn't get that validation. And we see very little changes. Yeah, probably never will. But that's exhausting. And there's no sort of feedback or reward for her work. Right. Not extrinsically, obviously there's intrinsic, but it's just exhausting.
It's like poker I used to play, and I had to distance myself from the results. If I made the right play, I'm like, oh, I know I did the right play. I was a 95% chance to win and I lost. Like, oh man, it's not like I want to do it differently next time. It's just, that's the way it goes. And you're basically signing up for something that is going to be unsuccessful or, have a rough go at it almost every time.
Yeah. And that's what's hard when there's so much that's outside of our control. It's hard.
And probably the previous parents, like, as much time as you were with the kids, those previous parents did as much as possible to fuck them up in that time, and you're undoing years and years of trauma and all that stuff.
Well, it's especially true because that happened during the early formative years. I mean, the 2 girls that we adopted, we got them at age 6 and 9. So they had been through some really, really rough situations before that. I don't know, man. Like they say, RAD, reactive attachment disorder, is permanent damage. And I don't know, man. Like I believe in the ability or the possibility of miracles, but short of that, like I feel like little we can do to change her ability to bond. So it's hard.
Yeah. I hear you. I mean, like, so the kid that I'm mentoring, he just got his own apartment and everything. And he's really excited and it's close to the border. And he called me a couple of weeks ago and he goes, John, I realized that I'm in the same apartment where I saw my first dead body. And like his dad was, living on the border and homeless a lot of the times and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't get in the door because someone died of an overdose. And the kid that I mentored was skinny because he was a kid and he could go in the door and open it enough for like other people to get in there or whatever. And then he realized he was renting the same apartment where he saw it or whatever. And he was like, horrible. Oh my God. And I was like, dude, the stuff that you dealt with as a kid, like, you had a horrible hand and all that type of stuff, but at some point you need to decide that you want to overcome that instead of blame that for everything. And it's hard to do that. And he's finally now at 27 starting to come to grips with that.
Yeah.
And I don't know how old those girls are that you took. I'm assuming if it was, they're less than that. And then you have you're talking about teenage girls.
They're 10 and 13 now.
Yeah, teenage girls in the best of circumstances are going to be really hard. So yeah, it's all, you signed up for a tough task, you know?
Yeah. That reminds me of one of the sayings, I don't know who this is, attributed to, but when it comes to mentoring men, and I'm sure this is applied more broadly, it's important to know when to kick a man and when to hug a man, or when a man needs a hug and when a man needs to be kicked, right? Because
Yeah.
like sometimes they need to be hugged, encouraged, and other times they need to be kicked. It's like you got to stop being a victim and move on with life. It's hard to discern that.
It's tough. I mean, I feel for them because I had every advantage growing up. My parents are still together. They just moved out here to San Diego during COVID and everything. So I can understand not having all that, and even having all that, my parents are still a pain in the ass all the time, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So not having that support and structure can really messes with a kid, and so I appreciate people like you that volunteer your heart and your time and your money for the kids. And I can totally understand it taking a toll on you.
Yeah. Thank you. And likewise. Are you open for a sales question?
Yeah, for sure. Anything you want. I'm an open book.
I didn't realize, I looked through your LinkedIn previously, and I didn't realize at the time that you had such sales experience, because I mostly just studied Ringpin. But one of the things that we're focusing on right now is going after, I guess you could say, larger players. So when David and I started Xfusion, we primarily were serving smaller SaaS companies, and that's still mostly the case. Although, like, we have from solopreneur type founders that we work with, all the way up to like Convesio as a WordPress hosting company that has maybe like 25 employees, and we have several agents on their account. So there's a variety, but one of probably our biggest competitor that really does things well is called TaskUs, and they have a 50 agent minimum. And their story is really interesting. They got a big break. They were involved in the Santa Monica startup community. They were playing poker with a startup group. They made a friend in that group, and the friend's brother's friend had a voicemail transcription business something like 10 years ago, and he needed 100 agents to process voicemail transcription. So that was their first big break. And now TaskUs has 23,000 employees, $500 million a year run rate, just a huge company, but even more importantly, they have an amazing reputation for treating their staff very, very well. And kind of like call center 2.0, or outsourced customer support 2.0 is taking really good care of your staff. There's all these legacy companies that have huge call centers overseas and treat their people poorly, pay them very poorly, et cetera. But many funded startups are going away from that, which is phenomenal, because that's very much in line with our ethos, is to treat people well, pay them higher than average, and just have people that stick with us a long time. But anyway, so David and I kind of had a paradigm shift. We're thinking, like, why are we not going after funded startups? Like on the larger scale, the idea, like maybe they have a seed round or a series A, and we can grow with them and help them scale, because we can provide that level of support. But the game is different. I think of it like fishing for a whale, right? And if we catch the whale, it'll feed people in the village for years to come, and then that many more people can come in from other villages and feed off that whale. But it's like, in the meantime, we have to catch some salmon to keep the everybody fed. But I'm curious, from a sales perspective, like one thing that we're noticing now is, like, our sales cycle is getting longer. And by the way, David and I are totally novice in the world of sales. It gets new for us, and we have an ethos or methodology that says, like, we really want to make just human connections, and we're non-pushy. It's like, hey, if it's a win-win fit, then great. If not, we don't want someone to do something they don't want to do. So we're very low pressure. But I'm curious, in your experience, like selling to larger, even now or in the past, like, I guess some ideas or thoughts in selling to larger companies.
Yeah, and it's so funny, and I can relate to what you're saying, because like with us, we're pre-revenue startup or whatever, and everyone's like, get to 10,000 MRR as fast as possible, do it. And I was like, well, I could do that, but that's not really like the fish we're going after. I am whale hunting, and it's basically just my personal runway, how long I can last, because those whales take a lot longer to bring in, and they're like, go get some small stuff. And I was like, I can, but that's going to get us off the track, and I just held firm, and I said, this is an enterprise thing. This is for enterprise companies. That's all I'm going after. Like, that's what I'm doing. And
take some faith.
Everyone told me not to. And it's still been a real grind, and we're barely going to make it, but it's going to work out. And these things, you just have to be patient. It's always on their terms, not your terms. You have to multi-thread within the company and get multi champions, going for you.
Okay.
You need like the strategy people and the marketing people. You always need multiple champions within the company. Even you do all that stuff. Oh my gosh, we were supposed to get signed today from Toys R Us. They get sold on Monday. I don't even know if my guy's
Oh,
still there anymore. I haven't gotten an email
oh
back in 3
no.
days since then.
So you may
Yeah.
even have to start over then, or in some sense, sort of.
We actually have a meeting tomorrow. The dev is still there. The dev's like, okay, we want to see the API tomorrow. And I was like, oh my gosh, who is still there? But we were supposed to have to sign paperwork by St. Patrick's Day, they said, and they get sold on Monday. So anything can happen at any time. And that's why like you just got to have so many in the hopper. And that's why you don't have to care about any one of the whales. Instead of just whale hunting one, hunt 10 whales and then one will come in,
Mhm.
you know, and
Sure.
and it's really the multi-thread, and you and David already have it. It's all relationship building and personal. This is all doing the stuff that can't scale. I don't use any
Okay.
automation, any tools. I use a phone and a Gmail account and LinkedIn and Twitter and Clubhouse, but it's all about building real relationships with people. I try and help people. And when I do that, they want to help me in the future or whatever it might be. And one thing
Yeah.
leads to another thing. And all of a sudden now we're getting referred to people as my QR guys or whatever. And
Mm.
that's how like we got the North Face. It's not closed yet, but like the guy, we got an introduction, you know, from a high up company, and the guy goes, hey, this is our QR guys. You got to talk to them. And the guy goes, okay, cool. I need 150 QRs this week and 3,000 in a week in another week. And I was like, that's our first conversation. Okay. You know,
Because
so
you have that
it's
conveyed
actually,
trust.
yeah, exactly. And it's the social proof, and like
Mm.
there's no skipping these relationships and the groundwork and the length of time that it takes to build a real relationship with someone that they're willing to refer you to other people. Like just this morning, I had a meeting with Postal IO. They're a corporate gifting platform. One of their big competitors is Sendoso, and like 6 months ago, I approached both of them, and things went faster with Postal. So I still want to go back to Sendoso, but my partnership with Postal is so good right now that I don't want to go to their competitor. He keeps referring new people to me. I went into a Zoom this morning. I was a minute early. He just let me in anyways, and I didn't understand what they were talking about. I thought it was about me. I was like, hey, is this meeting supposed to be me, or did I drop in on someone else's meeting? And they're like, oh, we're just finishing up. I met the guy, and it actually happened to be for a customer that I've been trying to, you know, target that company. And he's like, oh, John, you got to meet Adam and whatever. And I met him and like, oh shit, that's the company I've been trying to approach. And that guy texted me right afterwards, like, hey, we need to talk and get your thing. And it was just because I had built such a solid relationship with that guy that he referred this other one. So we have like 10 different unicorns in our pipeline right now. And all 10 came through some different method, you know, that's not repeatable or scalable or whatever. And you just have to build the trust that you're actually going to be able to help them solve a problem, or you know, bring value to them that they can't do internally, or make their life better in some way or whatever it might be.
That makes sense. Are you
You guys have the right approach.
anticipating?
It's human, you know.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Are you anticipating going back to, well, I don't know if you're going back to, but do you think that you will use an in-person relationship method in the future post-COVID?
No, no, we've both been remote almost 20 years. And I like meeting people in person and having a drink. I think having a meal with someone is one of the best ways that you can
Yeah.
bond with people. Like
Yeah.
when you share a meal with someone, like that's a bond, you know?
Yeah.
And I love doing that stuff. And I actually been doing it for years and years, ever since like these delivery services started. I would do Zooms, and all of a sudden they'd get a pizza at their office, you know, 15 minutes before our Zoom, and a case of beer or whatever.
Huh.
And so you do that over Zoom, and like it's almost like breaking bread with them.
I
But
see.
you know, I probably would want to do some in-person stuff, but we're doing QR codes to go from physical to digital, so we can use our own product. Like I can send someone a postcard or a box of cookies, and they could scan that to be talking to me, and it just shows the value of what we're doing even more. So for us
Totally.
particularly, being remote, it kind of sells our own, you know, eat our own dog food pretty much.
Yeah. I'm curious so one of the things that I don't have a lot of experience with is, you know, going for these larger potential accounts. Let's say I talk to a director of customer success or a director of customer support and make a strong connection. I don't yet know on average how much decision-making authority that person has. I mean, obviously it makes sense that we want them to be a champion, but then do you ask to speak with somebody? Like, it just seems like a weird, like, I don't want to go behind their back, or like when you
Yeah, you
say,
have to.
how do you go about that?
Okay, so I have a crazy one. I have an insane one right now. our biggest customer, our biggest prospect. We're under an NDA with them. Um, I hit up their chief strategy officer like 2 months ago. Literally the first text back to me goes, "Oh my God, we've been waiting to find you guys for so long. Like, let's go. We want to invest in your company." It was before we even talked. So perfect target. I hit my ICP exactly like it's supposed to be. Um, we meet, have a great meeting. He brings the president of the company, the chief marketing officer, and chief innovation officer, all those people. And then we're supposed to have another follow-up meeting the next week. Doesn't happen. I was like, "Hey, what's up?" He sends me an internal email, 2 other people on their team saying, "These people think they're in charge. We're trying to get our internal processes down. If they contact you, don't respond. Just let me know. Only talk to the CMO. That's who I want your point of contact to be. We're trying to get our internal processes in place." So I hit him up on Friday. I was like, "Hey, we didn't get, we're supposed to have a meeting. Nothing happened." He's like, "I'll check into it." Monday, I get emailed from the exact person that he says you're not allowed to talk to. And she's like, "We want to meet on Wednesday." I'm like, "Shit." And he's on the email and everything. He doesn't respond. So like later that night, I email him. I was like, "Hey, the people I'm not supposed to respond to are waiting for a meeting. What should I do?" He doesn't respond. The next day I call him. He doesn't respond. I'm like, fuck, it's been, 36 hours. I need to respond to this email. And I was just like, "Okay, hey, sorry for the slow reply. Yeah, I'm happy to show you what you need to see," or whatever. And now we're like meeting with the people that we're not supposed to meet with. Like specifically told us don't meet with these people. And I asked an advisor of mine, and he goes, "In the Army, you take the most recent order."
Fair enough.
And so there are times like I didn't like having to do this, but I can't go 2 days and not respond to people. But so typically, if you do have someone good, I go when I find a company that I want to target, I go to LinkedIn and I send requests to like 15 people in that company. Whoever bites first, that's the first person I'm talking to, and then like I find out, and if like, I'll start a separate conversation with someone else. But if you do need a multi-thread, like the salesperson in, you say, "Hey, is this your department? Do you make the call on this, or should I talk to my to your sales guy too?" And they'll be like, "Oh no, I'll introduce you to him." Or like, "Oh no, that is my department." And you can just be super upfront with the people if you build that good relationship and be like, "Are you the guy I need to talk to about this, or do I have to talk to sales also, or how do these typically get done? Tell me your buying process." And if you try and match your selling process to their buying process, almost everybody will tell you what their buying process is, but no salespeople ever listen because they want to do their sales process, whatever the hell that is, but match it to how they want to buy, and they'll tell you that.
That makes sense. So in one recent case, I met with a guy named Paul Romero from Shopware, and they are recently funded. He is a fairly recently hired director of customer support. And interestingly, I think it was the CEO or maybe one of the co-founders referred us to him. I don't know how they found us, maybe organic. I'm not really sure. But anyway, I think it's the CEO said, "All right, why don't you reach out to these guys at Xfusion and talk to them?" So we did. And then he kind of went ghost on me, Paul did. So like in that situation, would it be wise to follow up with the CEO directly? Like, "Hey, just want to let you know I had a great conversation with Paul. Appreciate the referral. Wanted to check in with you," type thing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what's the worst that's I always do what's the worst that's gonna happen? You already don't have the deal. Like maybe Paul isn't gonna love you, but the truth is probably Paul's afraid to bring you in because it might make his job look redundant or something like that. You need to find something that resonates with Paul if Paul makes that decision. This guy probably just hired Paul and he's like, "Oh, I'm not gonna hire some outsourced people when I just brought Paul in." He needs to decide that, but you might need to, you could say, "Hey, I had a great talk with Paul, but he hasn't responded recently, so it seemed he's not interested. I just wanted to run it by you and make sure you had the same thought," or whatever.
I see. I see.
You have to do that stuff. You just sit there and wait forever.
There really is nothing. I don't have anything to lose, I guess.
I always do what's the worst that can happen. Like, "Oh, we already don't have this deal. Who cares?"
Yeah.
So yeah, and I try and give the person, like, I thought it was pretty reasonable for me to email the guy and call him and be like, "Hey, should I be responding?" And I gave him 2 days and he didn't respond to me, so I did it. And you can give this guy, I would send it, you could send him another one. "Hey, I thought we had a good call. Did something change?" Or you got to, in your follow-up, give him a reason or add more, or we added this extra thing that I thought you might like, or that addressed the problem that you showed, or something like that. And if he doesn't, you give him one more try and he doesn't, then he basically went dark, or maybe he already did. Definitely go back to the person that referred you and say, "Here's where him and I, lost or didn't see eye to eye. And I think that, we were right because of this," or whatever. And that you always have to make it about them. Like all salespeople do is like make it about you or whatever, but it's always about their company. and you have to think about every person's motivations, and that new director of customer support probably wants to hire all his own people and the people that he worked with last company and whatever his motivations are. So you got to figure out what you can do that like either make his job easier or make him look like a star, or all of a sudden he can hire more people because your people are less expensive and he can have a hybrid model or whatever it is. Like,
makes sense.
You got to figure out his different needs. Yeah.
It's like Dale Carnegie's, speak in terms of the other person's interest. It's like, I tend to forget, I tend to get into a mode of just sort of like following up. I think it would be wise for me to pause, put myself in their shoes and be like, what is Paul thinking? Just to your point, recently hired, what are his concerns? How is he feeling about this? And then approach it that way.
I never follow up. I always add something, and being like, oh, we talked about this. I wanted to show you, this thing that addresses that, or this article that showed that what we were talking about is right, whatever it might be. Like every follow-up adds something or has a reason to do it. And also, learning your customer's language. There's no substitute for the conversations. I've had so many conversations the past 6 months with my prospects to find out their words. And now I use their words when I'm talking. And instead I was using like our words and our technical mumbo jumbo. One sec, Beebs, I need 5 more minutes, please. I'm sorry. It looks like math. Why don't you just take a break for 5 minutes and then I'll help you, okay? Okay. She wasn't too upset about the break. So I had all those conversations and I switched from like technical jargon to like the words that they were saying, and it resonated way more. So having there's no substitute for the conversations. All this stuff that I'm telling you, it sucks and it's hard and it takes a long time and there's no shortcut to any of it. So, people say,
that is a moat though in and of itself.
Exactly. And people say, oh, put in a 15-step sequence and automate it and, put 1,000 people from your sales navigator ICP in there or whatever. But I've never done that stuff. I've never sent one automated email that wasn't from me in the history of my career. But I built good relationships, and the relationships that I build that supersede every company that I'm at. Like I can go sell to all my old customers from any company, and if I have something that I say works for them, and also telling people that we're not the solution for them. I've done that a ton of times, and I say, oh no, you should use this thing. That sounds way better for what you're doing. And like, wait, you don't want us to use your software or your solution? No. Like when you guys are really ready to grow, that's when you should come to us. Like right now, you want the easiest, cheapest solution. Like if you're trying to do big things, that's when we should talk, and you turn them away and like, actually you put yourself in their shoes. What really is the best solution for them? Yeah. And if you do that all the time, and if your thing isn't the best solution and you tell them that, there's no way to gain better credibility than that.
Yeah.
And this stuff, enterprise, if you're talking enterprise deals, that stuff should take you 12 months. So you're probably thinking like, oh, I can do this in 3 months or whatever. Those are like 12-month deals. I got a meeting recently that took me 3 years ago. I started it.
Well, that's really reassuring to know, because it does take a lot of faith. It's like, as we've started going for larger players, it's definitely taking longer, and we're feeling that.
I haven't heard one thing that you or David said in the 2 conversations that were like off, or anything that would give me pause or that people wouldn't resonate with. So I think like you're probably doing all the right things, and you just have to be patient and realize that enterprise sale takes a long time and it's really hard to do well. It's hard to do well.
And we're really committed to playing the long game. Like we're running a marathon, and so we're completely committed to that. And fortunately, we have a nice client base right now that are paying the bills. So I'm so grateful for that. But it gives us time.
You can get those clients to give you testimonials and referrals and stuff like that. It's all this who knows who and like referring and all that type of stuff. So like if they really like you, I ask all my people, hey, can you give me a video testimonial? And then those video testimonials, make a little commercial out of it or put them all on your site, and or ask them if they'll talk to your prospects. I've had prospects talk to my happy customers. No one speaks better about us than our customers,
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, so like bring a customer to a sales call sometime, do some crazy stuff and put your customers to work for you. They'll be happy. And some of them you could be like, hey, could you write us a testimonial? I'll give you a free month service, or you get an extra agent this month, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Like,
I love that.
And get them talking about you and get a little social proof and buzz going.
Yeah, it makes sense. You have time for one more quick sales question? Okay.
I can always do another call too. It's just my wife's away, so I have to help my daughter with her homework stuff.
Totally understand. So the last thing that was on my mind is forming partnerships. So quick explanation, there are other competing companies in this space. They have minimum requirements. In other words, you can only work with them if you have 10 agents, 20 agents, whatever.
I know where you're going.
Yeah. So I'm all about like in past businesses, this has worked out really well, but I've had more like personal trust established, personal relationship. So what we're trying to do is break into partnership relationships with other agencies. A great example is Support Ninja. They
Yep.
effectively offer a similar service what we do, but they have a 10 agent minimum. So I've reached out to their CEO and just haven't had any success in terms of him replying. But what I would love, like in a perfect situation, we would build a win-win partnership, and we're
Yeah, it's probably
completely on
not
board
the
with.
CEO. It's probably like one of the sales guys there, and you're like, "Hey, what about all these deals that you get? Where's your leads go that don't qualify? Where do they end up?" And then you make a deal with the sales guy or whatever, or somebody else. Like going in with the CEO is, probably works for some companies, but you can probably get the same. It's not the CEO that's getting those deals that are so small. It's some sales manager or whatever, and be like, "Hey, where do those leads
Oh,
end up?" and
huh.
uh, and go that route. But these partnerships, I've never gotten more business from than anyone other than my competitors. Uh, and people go in, they think that you're a competitor, but you're not a competitor, and you can form really good partnerships. But it's just finding the person in there again whose motivation is aligned. Like, what are you going to do for that CEO by taking his small stuff? Maybe nothing, but maybe you can give that sales manager referrals or whatever, or a kickback if he's giving you all the leads that are going into the nether or whatever.
Huh. Because we do offer a referral incentive, and what we've discussed is $1,000 per agent, or even a 5 or 10% percentage
Yeah,
of
but
each
that might
deal.
not move the needle for the CEO. He's like, oh, those
Hmm.
deals are too small for us in the first place. Now I'm getting a piece of those two small
Yeah,
deals.
just
Like,
doesn't care.
not worth it, you know. But like the sales guy, he's like, oh shit, I could have sold that for $1,000, but now I can get 400 instead of zero. Like that could be cool. But and I never even take money for any of my referrals because I always think that what goes around, comes around again or whatever.
Sure.
So many people do, and so many salespeople would do that, but you just find out by talking to them what motivates them and be like, hey, would you want me to give you a referral, or would you want me to, give you money for each one of these deals?
I
And they'll
see.
tell you.
That makes
And
sense. Hmm.
you probably target 5 people there. You'll find one of the five, and you just say, hey, where do the dead leads go? Whose desk do those end up on? How do I get them on my desk? And they'll actually tell you that. There's someone there that takes those leads and like, that didn't qualify. We're not calling them. And that person could very easily send that to you.
That makes so much sense. Well, John, this has been fun. I don't want to keep you from your kiddos any longer, but
Why
um,
don't we schedule another one? Because I think that there's a lot of stuff that we could do together too. And I'm happy to answer any sales questions. I really like both you and David. So any way
appreciate
that I
that.
can help, I'm happy to. I'm also part of a group. It's called ThursdayNightSales.com. We do a Zoom every Thursday night. Both the people that host it are actually advisors for Ringpin now. They're sales experts for 20 years each. And
Oh, wow.
basically, it's
Okay.
just people like you've been asking. Like people just ask questions and people shoot the shit and go and it's a really good group and it's become a good community. And through that community, my network is like crazy strong right now, and it's stuff like that. Like basically anytime someone needs a referral or needs to get into a company, I have some way into that company by building this network, by showing up on that Zoom for 53 straight weeks or whatever, like I have, and being a real person. And
It's
there's no
amazing.
shortcutting 2 to 3 hours per week for 52 straight weeks and
Yeah.
building a relationship with people. Like
Yeah.
you can't speed that up. It's just
Yeah.
so you're doing all the right stuff, and you just got to do more of it and be patient with yourself and celebrate the wins and as you get them.
It's really reassuring. Well, John, we're beyond bullish for Ringpin and certainly would love to help in any way possible. I've been telling everybody I come across about it. I'm just super excited. I even told my kids, they're like, that's so cool. Just
My
explain how
daughter
the,
has a ring. She has one that goes to a Frozen video and a Yo Gabba Gabba video, and she scans
nice.
her QR. So
It's
if
just
your
a
kids want
fantastic
them,
concept.
I'll make a QR code for anybody if anyone wants.
That's awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for your time. I definitely look forward to chatting. I'll check out the Thursday night sales.com as well. And I'll
Yeah.
share that with David.
Yeah, and if you want to put some time for next week or something, we can talk about maybe ways that Xfusion and Ringpin could do some stuff together.
I'd love that.
If that's interesting, or more sales questions, whatever you want to do, I'm happy to help.
Yeah, let's do that. I'd love to have David join on that as well. Kind of pull us all together. Is it easiest for me to just send you? We have a collective Calendly, where both of our schedules show there. Would that be the easiest approach?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll see if my co-founder can come too. He's crazy busy, and I usually only bring him on like the technical talks. But I
Got it.
like both you guys, and maybe something will spark from having everyone together.
Oh, I'd love that. Great. Well, thank you,
Awesome.
John. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, it was really great chatting with you. I look forward to keeping it up and if you do notice anyone that like I'm connected to, I'm happy to introduce you also. And I think the more we talk, the more we'll find ways to help each other.
I agree. Yeah. And likewise. Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Take it easy.
much. Cheers.
Bye.